with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. At that time, Jesus said to his disciples, "Peace I leave you. My peace I give you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. You heard me say to you, I go away, and I will come to you. If you loved me, you would have rejoiced, because I go to the Father. For the Father is greater than I. And now I have told you before it takes place, so that when it does take place, you may believe. I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming. He has no power over me, but I do as the Father has commanded me, so that the world may know that I love the Father." The Gospel of the Lord. My dear brothers and sisters, peace be with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives it to you, do I give it to you. In the Gospel this morning, Jesus makes an important distinction between the peace of the world and the peace that he offers. Jesus himself is very often described as the Prince of Peace. But what is the difference between the peace of the world and the peace that Jesus offers? Well, the peace of the world is transitory. Have you ever heard the expression that some great enemy must be defeated, some great cause must be won, some great struggle must be overcome, and then we will have peace? For the Americans and the Western world, the Cold War had to be won. And once the Cold War was won, once the forces of communism were crushed, then we would have peace, and the world would bathe in the light of prosperity. Well, the peace of the world is transitory. So too will be the peace that comes after the coronavirus is finally put behind us. In 100 years, or a little less, or a little more, there may be another pandemic, another virus, another resistant bacteria, something else to disturb the peace of our lives, to threaten the peace of the world. I say again, the peace of this world, the peace we can build, the peace we can find, is transitory. But the peace of Christ, the peace that Christ offers, the rest that Christ offers is not transitory, because it is an eternal peace with the Father, an eternal rest with the Father, in the kingdom of the Father, where the book of Revelations has said to us, there will be no more tears, nor sorrow, nor grief, for the former things would have passed away. The peace of Christ is a peace of resting in the presence of God. In this world, we are eternally restless, as St. Augustine reminds us. our hearts are restless until they rest in the one that they were made for, until they rest in God. The peace of Christ, the peace that Christ offers, is eternal, everlasting. And that is why, when we bury our dead, when we commend our dead to the kingdom of the Father, to the mercy of God, we say, rest in peace. Very often, those are the final words inscribed on a tomb. Rest in peace. St. Paul himself gives an indicator of this peace to come when he says, I have run the race and I have fought the fight for Jesus Christ. It's the end now. I'm done. I've struggled my whole life. Well, my whole ministry at least. To promote Christ, to live the gospel, to preach the gospel. And now, at the end, when all is done, when the race has been run, when the fight has been fought, now I can rest. Now I shall have peace. In the midst of the chaos of the world, where we don't know when the next threat is going to rear its ugly head, when we don't know when our peace will be shattered once more, we can count on the peace of Christ. We can hope to that peace which we will attain with the Father through the promise of the resurrection, through the promise of Christ. We can look forward to that day when every tear shall be wiped away, when there will be no more sorrow nor weeping, for all those things would have passed away. The peace of Christ fills us as Christians with a great longing for that moment, with a great thirst for the person of Jesus Christ. When we say, peace be with you in the church to one another, that is a great symbol, a great foretaste of what is to come. When we consume the sacrament, the Eucharist, the person of Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, when we feel his presence in and with and among us, that is a great foretaste of things to come. And so, as we look forward to peace, as we look forward to rest, as we look forward to experiencing the love that is based on, here in this church, once more, when we will say to one another, peace be with you, and we will embrace with handshakes and hugs, when we will taste the sacrament and carry Christ within us as living tabernacles once more, as we look forward to that in anticipation, we are called to be ourselves people of peace, people reflective of the peace that we long for, that we hope in, people of peace in our hearts. Do not let your hearts be troubled. People of peace in our homes, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our groups of friends, people of peace throughout our lives, as much as we can be in our frail human state, according to our own limitations, our weaknesses, our struggles. We are called to be as much as we can be reflections of the peace that we are promised, guaranteed. Reflections of the peace that we foretaste, that we partake in here, that we will partake in once more when this period is over. And that peace calls us to love one another, to be compassionate to one another, to be open to one another, to be sensitive to one another. That peace calls us to honor the great commandment, love the Lord your God with all your mind and all your heart and all your soul. Love him and love your neighbor as yourself. So, my dear brothers and sisters, I have a challenge for you today. Whilst we are on lockdown, examine your heart. Glory, rejoice in the peace that you will obtain through Christ and with Christ on that glorious day when you are welcomed into the Father's kingdom, when as the prodigal son you return home and the Father embraces you. Rejoice in that. But ask yourself, what does that mean for me now? How can I reflect that peace, that love, that compassion? Who do I need to be at peace with in my own life? This may be somebody who's passed away already, or somebody who you haven't spoken to for a long time. This may be a family member, an employer, or an employee. Where do I need to put into practice peace in my life? As much as I can. And this is not a quick fix. This is a journey. Life is a journey. And so take the first step today. Examine your heart. Rejoice in the peace of Christ, the peace promised to you personally and to me. And then how can I reflect that? To whom do I need most of all to reflect that? Perhaps for some of us, the answer will be ourselves. A challenge to you today, my brothers and sisters. At the end of this challenge, in the midst of this challenge, I encourage you to remember as you examine your heart, the words that Jesus speaks in the gospel. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled. Amen.